When the earthquake rocked the Himalayan kingdom of Nepal, the 25th of April this year, it was top of my mind because I lived in Nepal for some years, and this tragedy struck home to me and to many of us here in the ADRA Canada office because we have partnered with ADRA Nepal over the years. ADRA Nepal has been working in the country, partnering with communities since 86-87, when I first registered Nepal as an NGO in the country. Subsequently, I was followed by Paul Delhunty, who really built up the program for leper colonies and other communities that were particularly vulnerable. Most of the work that ADRA has done over the years has been in the area of community development, mobilizing communities, helping them to capture their own strengths as they tackle issues of poverty and poor health and lack of education and so forth. This work that ADRA has done over the years has had a profound effect, and ADRA is recognized and appreciated by local government and the national government. And when this current crisis occurred, again, ADRA was recognized and called to be part of the national response. As with most disasters of this type, the immediate needs are in terms of water and food and shelter, and sometimes clothing and blankets too. ADRA Nepal worked very closely with local and national governments to ensure that they were working in areas of need, not served by the government or other agencies. The ADRA network has been refining its capabilities in recent years to be more responsive. And when a crisis occurs, the ADRA International Office coordinates with the other supporting or donor offices, such as Canada, Australia, Germany, UK, US, the other Scandinavian countries, in order to mobilize support. And this helps to maximize the effort whilst avoiding duplication. The ADRA network has also been stockpiling relief supplies in the Middle East, which can be easily accessed for disasters in Asia and Africa. And this was the case with Nepal. We were able to mobilize resources that were already stockpiled in the Middle East and get them to Kathmandu relatively quickly. I've just returned from Kathmandu and I was able to see firsthand some of the responses that ADRA Nepal is doing. It was a special moment for me to go back to where I had lived many years ago, to see the changes in the country, but it was heartbreaking to see the devastating effects of the earthquake. And the tragedy was compounded, especially for poor people, because of the building methods. A casual visitor to Kathmandu today might wonder what all the fuss is about, because there are lots of high-rise buildings standing in the capital and elsewhere. But those buildings were built with the more modern reinforced concrete construction, and consequently they withstood, by and large, the effects of the earthquake. But the older style buildings with brick and without any reinforcing, they were particularly susceptible to the damage. And in their collapse, they injured and killed people, as well as causing long-term devastation to people's lives. But ADRA is making a difference. We went up to one village. The road was narrow. The Jeep almost couldn't make it. But at the end of the trail, after a 20-minute walk, we got to an area of villages that was being served by ADRA. On the way walking in, a woman met us and she showed us her broken wrists. They had been broken when the earthquake occurred, and part of her house wall fell on her. And she was heading towards the ADRA clinic that had been established in the community. And she said, "In all my life," and she was some 65 years old, "there has never been a doctor in our village. And now ADRA has brought a team of doctors to take care of us. Thank you, ADRA." It was good to see the people lining up cheerfully. ADRA had organized a mobile clinic with several doctors, a lab technician, nurses, and I was impressed with the cheerful attitude of the caregivers and how they were touching the lives, not just the physical ailments of the people, but helping them to process the emotional trauma that they had suffered. On the staff was a psychologist who was talking to the individuals about how they processed this difficult time in their lives. Canadian Adventists can make a difference in these kinds of disasters. And Nepal may seem very far away, but we can relate to it. We have our own Rocky Mountains, they have the Himalayas, they have cold temperatures, so do we. They're delightful people, and so are we. When I first went to Nepal, there were only a handful of Christians there, but now there are thousands of Adventists living in Nepal. It was heartbreaking for me to walk into a village just 30 kilometers from the Chinese-Tibet border and find there in a particular village of some 100 families, 22 families that were Seventh-day Adventists. Every one of them had lost their homes. And their church up on the hillside, which from the distance looked delightful, upon closer inspection, I saw that it had been absolutely devastated. Trying to understand why disasters occur is a complex task, but I, for one, am grateful for the timing of this particular earthquake. It was in the middle of the day, the end of the week, so children weren't in school. Very few people were in buildings. The death toll, the injury toll, could have been far worse if it had been at a time when people were in their buildings, in school, in offices, in their houses. We don't know why these things happen, but in God's providence, there were many less fatalities and injuries than might have been. However, this earthquake has caused major difficulties for people in that country, and it will be years before they can fully recover. Many aid agencies, including ADRA, have been able to provide temporary housing, shelter materials, tarpaulins, galvanized iron sheets to help people to get under shelter. But homes have to be rebuilt. Schools and clinics and the other infrastructure needed to provide for normal, healthy living. I'm grateful for ADRA Canada supporters. They have provided us with over $400,000 for this response, and there are still some donations coming in. We were very pleased to receive a grant of almost $1.5 million from the Canadian government, which added to the money that had been raised by our supporters across the country, is allowing us to make a significant difference in the lives of those affected by the earthquake.